Witness who has known me for 2 years, and I cannot think of anyone in town.
What about me?
Only a few shows have captivated audiences like I Dream of Jeannie on classic television. This beloved show, which premiered in 1965, delighted viewers with its blend of romance, comedy, and a touch of magic. For 5 seasons, the show took fans on a journey filled with laughter, romance, and wholesome family-friendly entertainment that defined an era. Unfortunately, one scene brought the show to an unexpected end. Shocked? Let's look into the rise and fall of I Dream of Jeannie and explore the surprising events that led to its cancellation after just 5 seasons. I Dream of Jeannie. The show came to life in 1964 when Sidney Sheldon, a television writer and producer, pitched the idea of the show to National Broadcasting Company executives inspired by The Brass Bottle, a book about a genie living with a man, and also by the success of Bewitched. Sheldon sought to create a show that blended fantasy, comedy, and romance in a way that had never been seen before in television. After a casting process that saw several high-profile actresses competing for the lead role, Sheldon finally chose Barbara Eden for the role of Jeannie. With her stunning beauty, sharp comedic timing, and natural charm, she was the perfect choice for the role. Larry Hagman was cast alongside Eden as Captain Tony Nelson, the NASA astronaut who became Jeannie's master after discovering her bottle on a remote desert island after a space mission went wrong. When Tony released Jeannie from her bottle, she fell in love with him and dedicated her existence to fulfilling his every wish, which often led to comedic chaos. The beginning of the show, I Dream of Jeannie, blended fantasy, romance, and humor. Its whimsical tone and the undeniable charm of its lead actors made it stand out in an era when television was filled with traditional family sitcoms. Fans all over the world were captivated by the dynamic of the show. It was different from what most TV sitcoms showed at the time. Jeannie's devotion to Tony was exciting and frustrating, and his repeated attempts to keep her magical abilities a secret made this back and forth the heart of the show. Cultural context and competition. When the show was released in 1965, it was an instant hit with the audience. This was partly because the 1960s saw a surge in supernatural and fantasy-themed sitcoms, with the show Bewitched leading the trend. So, when I Dream of Jeannie was released, fans were eager to see the on-screen dynamic. I Dream of Jeannie entered a competitive television world, but still managed to carve out its own identity. Unlike Samantha in Bewitched, who was a witch hiding her powers from the world, Jeannie's story was different. She was a genie who wanted nothing more than to please the man she loved, though often to his exasperation, and instead ended up causing more trouble than she solved, which made the show more unpredictable. At the time the show was released, American television was undergoing a shift. NASA had just captured the public's attention and imagination, and so by making Tony Nelson an astronaut on the show, I Dream of Jeannie tied itself to this cultural fascination, relating its story and production to something timely and relevant. However, there is no denying that the chemistry between Larry Hagman and Barbara Eden was another major draw, making their on-screen dynamic one of the most memorable in sitcom history. There were even rumors that the lead actress and actor had secretly gotten married during the production of the show. Success and impact. Over its 5-season run, the show built a dedicated fan base, and its lighthearted nature appealed to viewers of all ages. Though its first season aired entirely in black and white, the director and producers soon transitioned it to full color, bringing the show completely to life with its alluring visual appeal. Barbara's portrayal of Jeannie was playful, bringing cheerful energy to the show. Meanwhile, Larry's portrayal of Tony balanced his frustration with Jeannie's tricks and also his affection. This made the show more relatable. With the other key members of the show, including Bill Daly as Major Roger Healy, Tony's best friend and astronaut colleague, and Hayden Rourke as Dr. Bellows, the ever-suspicious NASA psychiatrist who started noticing changes in Tony's behavior and was always on the verge of discovering Jeannie's secret. The show's cast was complete, and Sheldon's vision was achieved. However, the impact of the show didn't just end on television. It extended far into the real world. Jeannie's pink harem outfit, much like Barbie's, became an iconic TV costume, and the theme song, accompanied by an animated sequence by the legendary Looney Tunes artist Friz Freleng, became instantly recognized. Conflicting perspectives and challenges. Like many other popular shows, whether of the 90s or the recent years, I Dream of Jeannie had its fair share of struggles. This was mostly about their financial constraints. The show was struggling right from episode 1. Apart from the fact that the executives and directors could not reach common ground on the best direction for the show, the back-and-forth creative sceneries also prevented the cast from giving their best. This was mostly seen in the acting of Larry Hagman, who, although loved by the fans, was mostly unhappy on set. However, one of the biggest challenges was Jeannie's character. Surprisingly, in the original pilot episode, it wasn't Barbara who played the role. It was actress Diane Brewster who portrayed the character as more of a worldly, sophisticated woman than the naive, innocent Jeannie that would eventually go on to become the trademark of the show. When the first episode was shown to a test audience, they did not react positively to this initial version of Jeannie. They found her too assertive and lacking in charm. As a result, Sidney Sheldon and the executives of the show made the decision to recast the role and chose Barbara Eden for the role. She brought a new level of warmth that the original Jeannie lacked, and her chemistry with Larry was seen immediately. However, this meant that the original pilot episodes had to be reshot, putting the show over budget and behind schedule from the beginning. However, their challenges weren't all about budgets. During the time the show was shot, there were much stricter rules in network television shows. These rules were enforced on the show, and network censors forbade Jeannie from exposing her belly button on screen, which soon became one of the most talked about controversies surrounding the show. Meanwhile, Sheldon, who had full creative control over the series, also felt the pressure of keeping the show fresh. He did not want too much recognition for the show, so to avoid too many credits, he wrote a few episodes under a pen name. However, despite the attention and internal tension the show experienced during its run, I Dream of Jeannie was still one of the most enduring TV shows of all time. Many viewers found this series as a way to escape their reality, and even today, the legacy continues to influence modern TV comedies and films. So, as we set the stage for the moment that changed everything on the show, it is important to understand just how beloved the show was to fully understand the heartbreak and disappointment that followed. However, the question remains, what brought an end to such a cherished and revered show? Why did fans leave such an iconic and impactful TV show behind? The answer lies in one scene and a wrong creative decision from the network of the show. The scene that changed everything. By the time the show entered its 5th season in 1969, it had already become one of the National Broadcasting Company's most beloved sitcoms and gained massive popularity. However, behind the scenes, things were about to change. Despite its popularity, the show had never gotten so much in ratings. It consistently ranked outside the top 25 shows on television. National Broadcasting Company executives were troubled by the outcome of the show and believed that after 4 seasons of playful flirtation and near misses, it needed a shakeup to boost ratings. The executives of the network believed that after 4 seasons of playful flirtation and near misses, it was finally time for Tony and Jeannie to tie the knot in the 5th season premiere in an episode titled My Sister the Homewrecker, believing that audiences wanted resolution. In the episode, the original Jeannie was replaced by a look-alike cousin of Jeannie, played by Eden in a dual role, who wreaked havoc on Jeannie's wedding before Jeannie herself decided to step up and save the day. However, the decision to marry off Jeannie was not without controversy. Many within the production team, including the cast, feared that a wedding would destroy what made the show work in the first place. The essence of the show was rooted in its tension, the unspoken romance, the near kisses, the misunderstandings were all things that kept audiences engaged. By having them settle into a married life, the show lost its crucial element. Even the show's creator, Sidney Sheldon, the show's creator, was reportedly unhappy with the decision, feeling that the new direction of the show went against everything he had originally envisioned for the series and had initially resisted the idea. He had built I Dream of Jeannie around the central theme of a love-struck Jeannie trying to win the heart of a duty-bound astronaut. Sheldon thought the show worked because the characters were so different. Making them a regular married couple, he worried, would ruin that. Later, he said he warned the executives that these changes might end the show. However, the network was firm and insistent. Television was changing rapidly, and the elements of chaste and non-sexual displays were now becoming accepted on television shows. The network executives saw Jeannie and Tony's marriage as a way to freshen the series and maintain its relevance to boost ratings. Reluctantly, Sheldon finally agreed. One of the juiciest rumors of the series, I Dream of Jeannie, was the thought from fans that Barbara Eden and Larry Hagman had secretly gotten hitched in real life. No official proof of this claim existed, but the speculations remained for years. You can't blame the fans for shipping them together. Eden and Hagman had undeniable on-screen chemistry. Perhaps the idea began when fans found Eden and Hagman's interactions too intimate. They were playful with each other, but they were also involved in heated moments on the set of the series that some could not help but question the status of their friendship. Throughout their time on the show, there wasn't anything particularly scandalous between the two, but crew members recalled them as being super close. Hagman was known to be very protective of Eden. He had already been established as an erratically behaved man. However, he clashed with the network executives over Barbara, the way she was treated, and the scenes they had together. In Barbara's words, her friendship with Hagman was complicated, not romantic. This was recorded in her memoir, Jeannie Out of the Bottle, a New York Times bestseller that was released on the 5th of April, 2011. Although in interviews Eden fondly spoke about Hagman, she also admitted that he was difficult on set due to his drinking and mood swings. She maintained that there was never an affair between them, so marriage was impossible. Despite these denials, the idea that Hagman and Eden were romantically involved stayed on. Perhaps this was the reason the National Broadcasting Company executives decided that a wedding between them would raise the ratings. It's a typical case of, let's give the fans what they want. However, sometimes what fans want isn't what's best for the show. The infamous wedding episode. The wedding episode of I Dream of Jeannie was promoted by the network, promising viewers the chance to witness television history. On the 2nd of December 1969, I Dream of Jeannie aired the episode The Wedding, in which Jeannie and Tony finally married in a grand ceremony at Cape Kennedy. It should have been a triumphant moment since fans had spent years watching Jeannie pine for Tony. However, instead of being a high point for the series, the wedding marked the beginning of its decline. Although the wedding scene at the Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles was well shot, with over 200 extra guests included, the episode itself had a few issues. Fans had come to love the playful push and pull dynamic of the show, but marriage instantly stripped that away. The excitement of wondering, will they or won't they, was gone, and instead, Jeannie and Tony just became another sitcom couple. Their wedding changed the identity and fundamentals. What was once a show about magical chaos and romantic tension had now become a more traditional domesticated sitcom with a regular couple. Gone were the days of Jeannie playfully using magic to win Tony's heart. Now, she was just a housewife, and the things fans loved about her were no longer seen. Like Samantha in Bewitched, Jeannie became less of a force of chaos and more of an ordinary sitcom wife. After Jeannie and Tony got married, the popular trope of will they, won't they, was diluted. As a result, a lot of changes had to happen in the show. The switch in humor was the most jarring. Being used to Jeannie's magical mishaps, their marital misunderstanding could not stand in as the next big thing for the series. There was a huge comical gap in the show, and ultimately, fans began to lose interest. We all know that once fans lose interest in a series, the ratings decline starts. The wedding episode affected the show. Its ratings, which had always been strong on National Broadcasting Company, started to drop after Jeannie and Tony got married. A similar situation played out in the show Bewitched, where the main leads, Samantha and Darren's marriage, led to increasingly conventional domestic storylines. The difference in Bewitched was that the show had always been structured as a married couple sitcom. In contrast, I Dream of Jeannie thrived on its romantic tension, and once that tension was gone, so was the original element of its humor. In addition, longtime fans of the series were confused by the new changes in the wedding episode. They had spotted a few inconsistencies and felt like they were being manipulated. According to the original story, Jeannie's could not be photographed. However, in this episode, Jeannie's wedding was a grand event, and every moment was captured by photographers positioned at every corner of the room. Although small in detail, this overlooked plot hole left longtime fans annoyed and feeling like the episode was a forced, ill-conceived idea that completely ignored the established rules. However, this was where the show got more juicy. To make matters even worse, the National Broadcasting Company had staged a fake wedding for Barbara Eden and Larry Hagman before the episode aired, possibly to promote the episode and increase the ratings and on-screen believability. The network invited journalists and TV writers to witness what they marketed as the wedding of the century. What was meant to save the show ended up failing. Fans saw through the plan, and instead of excitement, the episode felt fake. Even the cast disliked the idea of marrying Jeannie and Tony. Larry said in an interview, "I knew it wouldn't work once they got us married." Even after these warnings, the bosses did what they wanted. Hagman also mentioned that the show wasn't special anymore. It lacked the unpredictable supernatural chaos that came with Jeannie at the beginning. The marriage was well on its way to reducing the fantasy sitcom to a regular family show. Larry's frustration with the show had accumulated over time, and this new direction was just the final straw for him. He had grown to dislike the direction of his character and his new personality on screen. This eventually affected his behavior on set as well, leading to frequent intoxication and some bizarre antics, like showing up in a gorilla suit to the set. Eventually, even Barbara could not hold back on her distaste for the new direction the show had taken. Although she carried out her role professionally and hoped that this new direction would resonate with some fans and audiences, she later admitted in interviews that she believed the marriage was a mistake. "No, I didn't like the idea," Eden said. "Jeannie wasn't human. The entire premise of the show just didn't make sense after that." Sidney Sheldon, the creator of the show, shared that he regretted giving in to the National Broadcasting Company's demands. In his memoir, he highlighted how the decision to marry the two main leads ultimately led to its downfall. "Much of the fun went out of the show," he admitted. "The mystery and excitement all vanished." The wedding episode in I Dream of Jeannie has become one of the most debated moments in sitcom history. While marriage was often seen as the natural progression of most TV relationships at the time, this decision ultimately altered the core dynamic of the show. The dynamic shifted from a will they, won't they relationship to a more domesticated couple, and stripped Jeannie of her free-spirited charm, leading to a noticeable decline in the appeal. Many sitcoms struggle when they reach the point of fulfilling a long-running romantic tension. The downfall of I Dream of Jeannie after the wedding episode is an example of a common television dilemma. That is why shows like Friends prolonged their will they, won't they storylines and dynamics for years in order to maintain their audience engagement, having learned from the mistakes of I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched. Most TV shows have now realized that the magic of romantic tension is keeping your audience invested. Once that romantic tension has been resolved, the directors have to resolve the new challenge of finding new ways to maintain the audience's interest and engagement. Unfortunately, for I Dream of Jeannie, the writers could not find new ways to keep the tension going and maintain the audience's interest. The decline and cancellation. In the end, Sidney Sheldon's warnings seemed almost prophetic. After the wedding episode, the ratings took a huge decline. The series, which was once a staple of the National Broadcasting Company's lineup, fell out of the top 30. It didn't take long before the executives saw the writing on the wall, and by 1970, I Dream of Jeannie was officially canceled after just 5 seasons on the air. The final episode, titled I Dream of Jeannie, was meant to serve as a look back on the show's entire run, and had Tony and Jeannie, who were now enjoying a quiet, nice life together. However, for many fans, the episode felt like a weak comparison to the former lighthearted and witty nature of the show. Many cast and crew members believed the wedding episode was the main trigger for its downfall. Without the elements of the show that fans were used to, they had simply lost interest. The unpredictable behaviors of Larry Hagman. Although Larry Hagman didn't win any major awards for his role as Captain Tony Nelson, we cannot deny the exceptional flair he brought to the show. His performance on the show could be noted as professional and talented, but Larry off-set was a different story. He often aired his frustrations about the repetitive nature of the scripts. He also often complained that the show lacked creative freedom, and as the series progressed, he began to throw tantrums. Perhaps that was his way of begging to be fired, but the series was lenient. Larry would often show up heavily drunk for his set. Sometimes he didn't just show up drunk. He began his day on the set with a bottle of champagne. We don't know if Larry had some other personal issues outside his frustrations with the series, but the alcohol use wasn't all he did. There were reports that he was using substances, too. The end one day, he showed up in a gorilla suit and refused to get out of it, therefore disrupting production for that day. Hold on, this wasn't the worst of it. In another tantrum act, Larry urinated on a set backdrop. His behavior was so problematic that the National Broadcasting Company executives sent psychiatrists to assess him, but they found nothing wrong, so it was ruled as an act of rebellion. Then there was Bill Daly, who played Major Roger Healy, Tony's best friend and fellow astronaut. He was known to be easygoing and comedic on set. At least there was one person who didn't give the National Broadcasting Company executives a headache. The tension between Hagman and the executives worsened after the wedding episode. Like many others on the show, he was strongly against the creative direction of the character, and he made this very clear. By the time the series started declining, Hagman was already eyeing other projects and eventually landed his iconic role as J.R. Ewing in Dallas. This role gave him significant recognition. He received 2 Emmy nominations and 4 Global Globe nominations for his performance in Dallas. If you're wondering if his tantrums ended on the set of I Dream of Jeannie, you're wrong. However, that's a story for another day. The sequels of I Dream of Jeannie. I Dream of Jeannie ended in 1970, but the series had an established popularity and a dedicated fan base. Seeing this, the creators of the series attempted to revive the story with a few sequels. In 1985, I Dream of Jeannie 15 years later happened. It was a TV movie that reunited Jeannie and Major Roger, but excluded the male lead, Captain Tony. Instead of Larry Hagman, Wayne Rogers took his spot as Captain Tony Nelson. The film was supposed to show Jeannie's struggle as a normal, non-magical married woman living a normal life with her normal husband, who had now become a NASA executive. The plot revolved mainly around Tony being chosen for a space mission, and Jeannie feared that she would never see him again. The sequel should have brought nostalgic appeal to its fans, but it failed to capture the magic of the original, and fans just couldn't love it as before. They missed the playful relationship between Eden and Hagman. They missed the hilarious and mischievous version of Jeannie, which was a clear contrast to the domesticated housewife she had now become. And we all know there's no mischief involved in being a housewife. Then, in 1991, the creators just couldn't get over their first success and decided to make another sequel with the title I Still Dream of Jeannie. This sequel focused more on Jeannie's teenage son, TJ, and her attempt to find a new master before losing her powers. This time, Tony was absent from the movie. This sequel was even worse than the first one. The absence of major characters and the low-budget production made the project even more difficult to like. Despite the lack of significant breakthroughs for the sequels, there were frequent rumors of a film adaptation of the series in the early 2000s, but it never happened. Even though I Dream of Jeannie was made in the 60s, the sequels could not replicate its original charm even after decades. The show's legacy and aftermath. After the show was canceled, many cast members secured roles in other movies and TV shows and achieved even greater career success. However, for Barbara Eden, the end of the show marked a turning point in her career. Despite her undeniable talent and charm, Barbara struggled to find roles that could match Jeannie's status. She appeared in a few TV shows, sometimes in minor roles, in the years that followed. However, she never stopped being proud of her role in the movie and its impact on modern TV culture. Despite its abrupt end, I Dream of Jeannie remains a beloved classic. Even decades after the show was released, only a few sitcoms have shared the lasting impact that it had. It continues to be celebrated as a classic of 1960s television. The main lead, Jeannie, became a beloved character for generations of viewers, proving that the charm and humor are timeless. The series also introduced new generations of viewers to the magic of Jeannie's and Tony's world, and in recent years, also inspired many high-profile remakes and revivals. However, the wedding episode remains one of the most talked-about moments in TV history, as a cautionary tale about how a single creative decision can make or break a show. Even today, showrunners and TV writers look to I Dream of Jeannie as an example of why romantic tension should not always be resolved. Many modern sitcoms, such as The Office and New Girl, have taken a more careful approach to pairing their romantic leads, learning from the mistakes of I Dream of Jeannie. In the end, their marriage serves as a reminder that sometimes, when it comes to romance and sitcom TV shows, the romantic tensions, the what-ifs, and the unresolved tension keep the audiences hooked. For I Dream of Jeannie, that magic was lost when they said, I do. However, despite that, the show remains a testament to the power of television to transport us to new worlds and introduce us to unforgettable characters. Even decades later, people debate on whether the wedding decision was a mistake. Some fans argue that it was inevitable, and that any further delay of the romance built up over the 4 seasons would have become frustrating for viewers. Others, however, insisted that the wedding removed the element that made the show work. While the show remains a beloved classic, many fans view the post-wedding episodes as a shadow of what it once was. Even today, fans still question whether I Dream of Jeannie would have ended so abruptly if Jeannie and Tony had never gotten married. However, despite the way the show ended, one thing is certain. I Dream of Jeannie will always remain a timeless classic. However, perhaps Jeannie should have stayed in her bottle after all. What do you think? Should Tony and Jeannie have stayed unmarried? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.